What's going on, everybody? My name is Brendan. I make videos here about my life and my hobbies, and today I want to talk about recording music. I've been recording music for over 10 years now. I started in like 2008 or 2009 when I got a Tascam Portastudio for Christmas, and then a few years after that, in 2014, I got my first MacBook and started practicing using a DAW with GarageBand. And at the time, all I was really interested in was recording demos. I wanted to be a musician, and so I just wanted something to be able to lay down arrangements and things like that. But as I worked with GarageBand more and as I learned more about recording, I became to appreciate the craft of recording itself. So I graduated from GarageBand to Logic Pro, and I started hanging out in a local recording studio and would just kind of look over the shoulder of the engineer, trying to pick up any knowledge I could just from watching. I was also playing in bands during this time. I played in a band called Pop Warner, and we recorded an EP at a studio back in 2017. It sounds like this. And that experience of recording songs instrument by instrument, picking out drum sounds, picking out guitar tones, and kind of going through this new creative process, right? Beyond just writing the songs with your band, but then this creative process of like, how do you want to lay it down onto a record, taught me a lot and got me very excited about the idea of being a audio engineer. So all of these efforts at learning to record and these experience I had culminated in 2018 when I released my first real project with one of my other bands called Dear Boys. It was an EP called Like a Letter. I'm really proud of this EP. It's my first success story, and my bandmates and I agree to this day that the record stands up to other projects we've since worked on, and it stands up to even albums that we like from other bands. Nevertheless, I feel like my skills and my ears and my knowledge have increased a lot since then. That was 2018, now it's 2024, so that's 6 years of continuing to gain experience and knowledge in mixing and recording. So I thought it would be fun to go back and revisit this record and see how I would approach things differently, see what is maybe missing or what I still like with the knowledge and skills that I have now. So the song we're going to focus on today is called Thaw Me Out, off the EP Like a Letter by my band Dear Boys. And what we're going to do today is actually listen to the final mix and master that we actually ended up releasing that you can listen to on Spotify and kind of just critique it. And in a future video, I actually want to do a full mix from the ground up on this song. So let's get into it. All right, so I got the song pulled up right here, and let's listen to the chorus.
Blow me out, wake me, 'cause I got somewhere I need to be. Call me out, I'm through it, 'cause I got nowhere better to be. I got nowhere better to be.
All right, so the first thing I'm noticing is that there's a lot of high frequency content, a lot of high mid-range content, and a lack of probably low end. And the reason I say that is because it sounds very bright to me, and it also sounds kind of thin. And this doesn't surprise me at all. It's not just my ears hearing it, it's also my memory. I know that back 6 years ago when I was still pretty novice, I was boosting a lot of like upper mids in like the guitars or the vocals, because that is where they really sound like they're coming forward, and you kind of end up in this vicious cycle where you're boosting your guitars, so then maybe your backing vocals kind of get drowned out a little bit, so then you try to boost those in certain areas. So I do know that I was probably adding too much high mid frequencies, and I feel like I didn't have a whole lot of confidence when it came to mixing low end back then, so I'm certain that I mixed it too low. I mixed the low end too low. So we can actually visualize this with an equalizer. So I'm going to pull up a Pro Q3, which is one of my favorite graphical EQs. And we can actually visualize what's happening spectrally. And what I mean by that is like the balance of like the frequency range from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz.
Blow me out, wake me.
Okay, so just as I kind of said, there is a distinct difference between the level of the low end here. This is about, we'll say 50 hertz to 500 hertz, and the average level of the upper frequencies, everything kind of 500 hertz and above. And there's some resonating frequencies here causing these peaks, but for the most part, you can see that there is an imbalance amidst the frequencies where there is too much high frequency content compared to the low frequency content. Now, what I could do is just take this EQ and pull some of that down, but I do really like how the guitars actually sound in that range, and I think we can get a lot more mileage out of boosting the lower frequencies to even out and complement the higher frequencies. So I've got a shelf boost set up right here at 200 hertz. So this is going to boost everything 200 hertz and below. And let's just see what happens when we, or rather, let's listen to what happens when we boost these frequencies.
Blow me out, wake me, 'cause I got somewhere I need to be. Call me out, I'm through.
So as you can hear, there is a lot more energy happening now in this low end. I'm hearing more loudness. In fact, it probably just is louder in terms of actual volume, not just perceived volume. But there is a lot more impact in the mix. So let's play it real quick with and without that boost.
Blow me out, wake me, 'cause I got somewhere I need to be.
Huge difference. So we're kind of introducing a new problem for ourselves though, and that's that we're kind of muddying up our mix now. So the bass frequencies add a lot of impact to our mix, but they don't add a lot of articulation. And what I mean by that is that the note values aren't necessarily heard, right? So you might have heard the adage, or not necessarily an adage, it's kind of just a fact that like bass frequencies are felt and not necessarily heard. So if I were to play just the bass frequencies, like it obviously sounds like we're listening to it underwater or like through a wall, or if you're like outside the club having a smoke, like this is what the music sounds like, right? So there isn't a whole lot of the melody content being recognized by our ears. And so it doesn't make sense though to get rid of this boost, right? Because what we're trying to do is actually increase the low end content of this song in order to complement the high end or to balance out the high end. But what we can do is start boosting the low mid range. The low mid range contains a lot of that melody content, the note value information. Hey guys, as I was editing this video, I realized I left out kind of some important information regarding the low mids. One of the reasons it's very important to have the low mids beyond being able to hear the note values in the lower register of the mix is that the low mids also provide the sense of low end when you're listening on smaller playback devices like your AirPods, your headphones, your laptop speakers. And the reason novice engineers have a tendency to pull those frequencies out is because they can sound muddy if they aren't treated properly. And when you cut out the low end frequencies, you are making the high mid frequencies comparatively or relatively louder. So in the same way that we like to boost the high mid frequencies because they sound more exciting and they tend to make our mix sound more upfront, cutting the low mid frequencies kind of has the same effect where we think we're cleaning up the mix, but in reality what we're doing is getting rid of a lot of the energy that the mix needs in order to sound loud and thick and powerful on smaller playback devices. So I'm going to make a boost right around like 350 hertz.
Blow me out, wake me, 'cause I got somewhere I need to be. Call me out, I'm through this, 'cause I got nowhere better to be.
So you can immediately hear more of that melody happening, especially in the guitars, as soon as you make that boost in the lower mid frequencies. Now, as we get closer to the actual mid frequencies, I want to address these spikes that are happening here. So I'll play the song again so we can see where these resonances are happening.
Blow me out, wake me, 'cause I got
Yeah, so these two right here, especially I was hearing, so this is at 650 and 565. Pretty common to get some kind of resonating peaks in this range, either from your guitars or your vocals. This might be coming from both. But because they're not happening during the entire song, they're only happening in certain moments, I actually don't want to have a static cut here. I'm going to make a dynamic cut, which we can do with the Pro Q3. So that just cleans up the mid-range a little bit. And now that I'm boosting so much in the sub, the low mids, I feel like the mix is starting to sound a little bit scooped. So I think boosting right around 1K might be good for this. Brings the mix forward a little bit. And now that we've taken care of our sub, our low mids, and the kind of normal mid-range, kind of 500 to 2000 hertz area, we're finally back in that range that I was talking about in the beginning, the upper mid frequencies. And I said that we could make a cut in that area in order to kind of darken up our mix because it's too bright, but I really liked the way things sounded there, so we decided to leave it alone and boost the lower frequencies in order to balance it out. Nevertheless, there are some resonating frequencies in that range, so I want to take care of those real quick. All right, so here's how it sounds with those cuts. It's subtle, but let me solo this one of these frequencies so you can kind of hear what I'm cutting out. Yeah, pretty nasty. And the last thing I want to do is just take care of some of the sibilants. So in this chorus, we have the main vocal, we have, I think, a mono double, we have stereo doubles, we have 2 layers of harmonies on top of that. And they're all singing the same words. So every time there's like an S, you have like 7 to 9 voices all singing this S at the same time. And so it's going to cause this massive jump in like the 10 to 12K range. And we can actually see it here. So just pay attention to what's going on here. Every time you hear kind of like a sibilant sound, like an S or a th, or even sometimes a hard T. Okay, so I see that peaking right here at 12K. So I'm going to pull a little bit of that out, and I'm going to make a cut here, a dynamic cut similar to the mid-range ones here, because those high frequencies aren't happening all the time. They're only happening when those sibilants hit, and so we can just cut them dynamically when they hit. So I've added a cut here and adjusted the threshold so that it's only engaging, so that it's only compressing that frequency band when the sibilants are hitting. Let's take a listen. And just for good measure, I added a low pass filter here just to roll off a little bit of like the hissy top end I was hearing maybe coming from the cymbals. All right, so now that we've done all this, let's listen to the whole chorus again, and we will listen to it with the EQ engaged, and then we'll disengage it to hear the difference. I've adjusted the output of the plugin so that the volumes match as well as they can. Alright, so even though we have some spikes still happening in the mid-range, again between that like 500 here, I guess like a 1.3 as well, you'll notice that the relationship between the highs and the lows, or that the overall balance of the frequency range is much more level. There isn't too much discrepancy between where this frequency range generally sits and where this one does. So because we've done so much boosting and cutting on this song, I do want to add a little bit of compression on top just to even things out again. I'm going to use the Manly Vari-Mu compressor. Shout out to JayMaas who turned me on to using this compressor. I'll link a video in the description below where he totally nerds out on using this thing. He has an actual hardware version of it. So very subtle compression, less than 2 dB of gain reduction, but it does add a little bit of evenness and then also that famous kind of sparkle that the Vari-Mu compressors provide. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I hope this was interesting for you. If it was interesting, go ahead and leave a like. Please subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you are notified of new videos. And speaking of new videos, I do want to make one where we take this a step further and actually mix the song from the ground up, as I've already mentioned a couple times in this video. So if that would be interesting to you, leave a comment below and let me know what you'd like to get out of a video like that. Also, if you or someone you know is in need of music-related services such as recording, mixing, mastering, help with songwriting, producing, I will leave my email in the description below so you can get in touch. And until then, take care.